Welcome back, everyone. Now, in this CKAD tips number 5, we will talk about namespaces. Before we start, let us first understand what do you mean by namespace. So imagine that somebody has defined a boundary, and inside that boundary, you can do pretty much everything you want to do. That's an area, right? You can In a Kubernetes world, let's say you can create pod, you can create a service, okay? You can create a deployment, let's put it that way. So you have different kind of Kubernetes object, but you want to bring them all together in a single logical grouping. And that grouping is known as namespace, right? So from the operating system perspective, you can think of that it is like a folder, and then you have got files created. There could be different files like text, PDF, etc. But they are all inside that folder. The moment you delete this folder, all the files are deleted. Same thing happens. So let's see what are the typical command line utility by which we can create and play around with namespaces. So let me switch to the Kubernetes console, and then I have created an alias for kubectl, which is like this. So yeah, I say alias kcubectl. If I have done that, then I say kget_all, and then I see only a service which is created. But if you see something like this, and then say show all namespaces, say show all namespaces, you can see the list is really big, right? So you have got many different component which are being used internally within the thing, and then they use cube a dash system. So let me just reduce the font size so that it becomes a bit readable. So you can see that there are namespaces available. So with Kubernetes dashboard, kube system, Kubernetes system, right? So all my namespace, even there is a my namespace also. So there are things already running under some other namespace called my namespace. Now, by default, in general, you when you use the kubectl, it lands everything into default namespace. So if I show you that k, let's say if I say k create run busy image busybox, just a simple command to create k get pod. If you do that, it runs things within the default namespace. If I say w wide, okay, so you can see that I have got the busy under node thing. And then if I say k edit or say k get pod busy output YML, if you have that output, and then if you go a little up into the metadata section of this definition, you will find that one of the fields it is using is the namespace. So this will have a namespace value, and inside of which this is getting created, right? So one of the things you need to remember that you use a namespace, that's the default namespace by default, but if you have to explicitly put things inside another namespace like my namespace or ns1, you need to do that explicitly. So how do we do that? So we created a container, right, directly, and then we did not specify much. So what I wanted to do is that I wanted to put it inside a specific namespace, but I want to first create the namespace. Let's see how that experience looks like. So I say k create ns. So you can short form namespace, or you can say namespace as a full word, and then I say Riju. So it will create a namespace. Now kget_ns will tell you then all the namespaces you have, and you can see that my namespace, uh, uh, Riju, all are there, and you can see that other two namespaces are 11-day old. Now, if I have to create the same container, right here, and then I run this, let's say I run this, I'll get an error because there is already a container busy available. However, if I go and say dash n, that's a short form of namespace, or else you can say dash dash namespace, and then you mention the namespace name, that is Riju, and it is now able to create the same container that is busy in another namespace, because I can create two same file in two different folders, just like that. So now if I am trying to work on this namespace and see the pod in that namespace, if I say get pods, I will only see the name values from the default. If I say this dash ns and then I type the namespace, sorry, and then I type the namespace here, it shows you the busy container, right? I just wanted to give a different name. Maybe I create another container, say busy2, and then create in within the namespace, and then I see second container showing up over here. One of the challenges here is that if you have this kind of activity happening and then you are not in the default namespace, you may want to change the context and then work on that namespace. So there is a way to do that. Um, so who can actually move things ahead? So for example, if I go ahead and let's say clean up this whole thing, right? Whatever I have done in this namespace, I don't want that anymore. So if I say k delete ns Riju, what happens is that it not only deletes the namespace, but also deletes everything inside that namespace. So everything kind of cleaned up. So it becomes easier to roll out a test environment in a separate namespace with all the objects. And then once the testing is done, you find sort of okay, you can delete the namespace and everything gets cleaned up. And I've seen that in my list of namespaces, I still have some namespaces left, like some 11-day old. So kget ns will show you all the namespaces. So you can say k delete ns, and you can delete them one by one, or you can delete them together. So you see that I say my namespace, my NSAMESPACE. There is a spelling mistake. So you can put two same object one after another without comma, and then both of them will be related. So all the resources within these three namespaces which I had created are all gone. So it's much easier and convenient for me to really show. So one of the other things is that the shorter form of the command to display anything within the namespace is dash capital A. That's all namespaces, right? So if you have to really see what all you have in your Kubernetes from all the namespaces, you can say dash capital A. But ideally, we always work on a default namespace context. If you have to change, there is a way to change that. So if you say k get all dash A, it shows everything, right? It shows everything from all the namespaces. If you say k get all, then it will only show you things from the default namespace. So if I just do not use the dash A, you only see the thing coming from the default namespace, but not from the all namespaces. In fact, one of the other things which I wanted to also talk about is how do you set the context? Huh? So I will probably cover it in a bit detail, but just to let you know that there is something called config. You can set and then say set context, and then you say that I want to set the current context, right? And then I say namespace default. I do not have any other namespaces at this point in time, but you just give the namespace name and it will set the context to that namespace. So going forward, if you are working on something where you need to work on a specific namespace, you can set that and then remember to set it back to another namespace when you change the namespace. Otherwise, you'll assume that everything is getting created in the namespace, right? So that's a little bit of about namespaces. Hope you have enjoyed, and this is very important aspect of CKAD exam as well as the Kubernetes work. Thank you very much.